We are going to be looking at some translation based on language exercise 6. This is Grand Canyon Theological Seminary Elementary Greek, and these translations are not identical to those in the language exercise 6, but they're similar, in some cases a little more complex. So if you can follow these, you should be able to follow those exercises. We'll be referring to the textbook, Basics of Biblical Greek Grammar by William D. Mounts. It's the 3rd edition, and it's from Zondervan. Here's the information for it. Let's look at our first one. This comes from Mark 1:11 and Luke 3:22, and it's God talking. It reads, Su e ha huias mu ha agapetas. So here we have a second person pronoun. You can find all of the pronouns on page 92 of Mounts's grammar, and we see here that Su is a nominative singular second person. Since it is nominative, we're looking at this to be the subject potentially of our sentence. Now we have the form of a me, and not surprisingly, it's a second person form since it goes along with a second person pronoun. The present tense forms of a me, they're located over here on page 59. And so we see a me as first singular, and then second singular a. That's the one we're looking for. And you see the rest of the forms here. Coming back over then, we see that our first two words are you are. It's a present tense form of a me, which is a to be verb. So present tense, I am, you are, he, she, it is, they are, we are. So you are. Now we come up against definite article. It's nominative, masculine, singular, and it's followed by what we expect, a nominative, masculine, singular noun, huias, which is son. Let's do a brief review of to be verbs with nominative subject and nominative predicate. We will typically have a nominative noun or something acting as a noun as the subject, then a form of a me, to be, so meaning is, was, will be, and then a nominative noun that will act as the predicate. So here is an English example. I am a person. So I is the subject, am is the to be verb, and then person is the predicate. Here is a Greek example from 1 John 5:6. We have ta pneuma. This is a nominative neuter singular. Pneuma is a neuter noun. Then we have estin. That's a form of a me, third singular. And then we have he aletheia. This is also nominative, but it's nominative feminine singular. But that's okay. We need a nominative subject. So ta pneuma is our subject. And then we need a nominative predicate, and that is aletheia. This means the Spirit is the truth, from 1 John 5:6. What we note here, though, is we have a nominative, a form of a me, and then another nominative, which is our predicate. Let's briefly also review verbless clauses. Often we have these as a nominative noun, followed by an article, followed by another nominative noun. And so we have, from 1 Corinthians 1:9, we have pistos ha theos. And often we would translate that as God is faithful. So here we have God as our subject and faithful is our predicate, and we supply a to be verb even though it's not explicitly there. But again, we have a nominative and a nominative. Note that pistos here is an adjective. It's being used like a noun. It's a predicative relationship. Pistos ha theos. So it is going to match not only in case, but in number and gender. So we have not only nominative, but they're both masculine, singular. And so we have, you are the son. We're just going to do this very mechanically. We may need to adjust things or tweak things as we go, but let's just go through mechanically. You are the son, and then we have a first person pronoun. In this case, it's a genitive. We could go back over to our chart and find that. Here it is, genitive singular, first person, mu. So we would give a base translation of me. Now we have ha agapetas, we have a nominative singular masculine definite article, and this adjective here, it also has a nominative masculine singular ending, which it should because it's coming after that definite article. What we have here is an interesting case of an attributive adjective. The second attributive pattern is article, noun, article, adjective. So here we have article, noun, ha huias, article, adjective. Notice that we have this genitive in the middle of it, which kind of throws things off a little bit. But if we ignore the genitive in the middle, the pronoun there, we can look at this as article, noun, article, adjective. And so we have, you are the son of me, the beloved, and if we change this around to you are my, the typical way to translate an attributive is you are my beloved son. God goes on to say, in you I am well pleased. So you are my beloved son. You are the son of me, the beloved. But it is an attributive, and so we can say you are my beloved son. Let's look at a second one here. We have halaas estin en te basileia to kuriou autou. So halaas begins this. We have a nominative masculine singular definite article. Laas is a masculine noun, second declension, and it means people. So we will have the people, and then estin, that is our third singular form of me, the present. We can find that back from the chart we saw of all our forms of me, present tense. So literally the people is, and I think in English we would say the people are. I'll put the is there to show that that's what the verb really is in Greek. The people are. Then we have this phrase here, en te basileia. So we have our preposition en, which is in, by, with, probably in here. And then we have the dative object of the preposition. The preposition en always takes a dative. And so we have this dative definite article, feminine singular, and then the feminine singular dative noun, basileia, kingdom. Notice the iota subscript under the alpha. That's a dead giveaway that we're looking at a dative singular. Okay, so we have te basileia. So in the kingdom, And then it looks like we have some genitives here that are going to relate back to kingdom most likely. So we have tu kuriou. So there is our genitive singular definite article, and here is a masculine noun, kuriou. So we have a genitive masculine singular noun along with its definite article. And so the genitive default translation will be of, and then the definite article will give us the, and then kuriou will give us Lord. And then finally we have autu. This is our preposition, third person preposition, and it's got a genitive ending, and it's matching here kuriou. So it's going to be in the kingdom of the Lord, of it, or of him. And this is relating back to the people. And since we're translating people here with a plural verb, we'll probably also give it a plural pronoun. So we'll say in the kingdom of the Lord of them. And to make this really better English, we're going to say in the kingdom of their Lord. So we'll just leave this out and translate, the people are in the kingdom of their Lord. Let's look at an example now that will allow us to look at some contract verbs. So we have zomen hati autas protas eleia hemas. So we have two contract verbs in here. The first one is zao. Notice that it has an alpha. Remember, for a contract verb, if we have an alpha, an epsilon, or an omicron, then when those bump up against vowels in verb endings, we have contraction. So here we have a alpha, and even though it's a very short little verb, the stem is only 2 letters. Because the end of the stem is an alpha, we have to worry about contraction. The other contract verb here is eliao. That also has a stem that ends in an alpha. Eliao means to have mercy on, to show mercy, and zao means to live. So let's take a look at our sentence here. We have zomen. Okay, so now we see that there's an omega there. So what may have happened to turn that alpha into an omega? Well, notice the ending here. I'm pretty sure, since I'm looking at a verb and I've got this ending mem epsilon nu, that I'm probably looking at the ending amen. So that's one of my present tense endings. And what happens when an alpha bumps up against an omicron? Let's look at our contraction rules. Here are our Big 5 contraction rules. The rules are found on Mounts page 141 to 143. The big ones, the Big 5 that are most commonly encountered, when we see epsilon bump up against omicron, or vice versa, omicron against epsilon, or omicron against omicron, we get omicron upsilon. If we see epsilon bump up against epsilon, then we get epsilon iota. This is a very common one. If we see an omicron or omega come up against any vowel except the ones noted here under Rule 1, we're going to end up with an omega. And then the last two, an alpha epsilon, will turn into an alpha, and an epsilon alpha will turn into an eta. So what we're looking at is Rule 3 here. It looks like we ended up with an omega. So we'll come back over and we'll note that we have the alpha bumping up against the omicron here. So I put the star here to show that this would never actually occur. So Rule 3 says that omicron with any other vowel except Rule 1, which doesn't include this one, would make this an omega. So that's what we have here. We have an omega. Notice that the circumflex shows us that some kind of contraction occurred. So we're looking at a present active indicative, first person plural, and our root is zao. I'll just copy that up there. You don't need the yellow highlighting. I just put that in there to show the contract vowel. So we have Zomen is live, so we live. That is the translation of it. We live. And then hati, this can mean various things. It can mean since, it can mean because sometimes, and it can simply mean that. So here we have we live. I can maybe say since or because. Now we're looking at autos. We saw autu up here in this previous example. It might be worth looking at the third person pronoun. So here's a chart of the third person pronoun. The lexical form is autos. That's our nominative singular masculine form. And note that the root here is, or the stem is alpha, upsilon, tau. The endings, as, u, o, on, etc., are exactly what you would expect from the first and second declension nouns. So asu, o, an, oi, on, ois, us. Same with the feminines. You just follow those down. They're exactly what you'd find in the first declensions chart. And then the same with the neuters. An, u, o, an, a, on, ois, a. So they're really not that difficult to figure out if you know the endings. You have the stem here, out, and then the endings follow exactly along the lines of your first and second declension endings. So no mystery there. So back over here we have a nominative masculine singular pronoun. That could be he or it. It won't be she because she would be a feminine ending. So let's leave it as he for right now. Protos means first. It is an adjective, sometimes used like an adverb, if it's modifying a verb. So he first. Now we have another contract verb here, and it is our verb eleao. Notice that alpha is the contract vowel at the end of the stem. We need to figure out now what happened to give us this alpha with an iota subscript. When I see an iota subscript, I'm thinking maybe there was an iota there to begin with. So we need to go look at our rules. Here we need to look at one of the other rules, in this case 7b, where we see that if we have the combination alpha and then epsilon iota, that's going to give us an alpha with an iota subscript. And now that we've been through this once or twice, there's an easier way to go about doing this, and that's just to look at the chart in Mounce's book. So let's go do that. Here we are on page 360, and notice that we've got present indicative, and then we have thematic contracted. So these are our contracted or our contract verbs. And now I can go look, and here I see, oh, there's my alpha with an iota subscript. Note that we also see an alpha with a iota subscript down here for the middle passive second person singular, whereas up here and under active it's third person singular. So there is some overlap there, but it's not too much of a difficulty because we can usually tell from context whether we need a third singular or a second singular. So now that we know how contract vowels work, it can sometimes be quicker just to come and look at the chart and look at the endings and figure out where we are, whether we have a alpha contract, an epsilon contract, or an omicron contract. We have an alpha contract here. We just look down and figure out what our ending is based on that. That can be simpler. So here's our verb. Since we do have a explicit nominative subject here, autos, he, we're looking for a third person verb which matches our third person active. So he first has mercy on. The meaning of that verb is to have mercy on. So he first has mercy on, and then we have hemas, and that is our first person plural pronoun. Let's go take a look at that. So again, we're on page 92. I recommend just copying some of these charts out or writing them out for yourselves until you learn them. And we're looking for hemas, so that's first person, and that is accusative plural. So we know that it's accusative, which we're expecting because it's the direct object of our verb, eleao. So we come back over, and so we have an accusative first person plural, so that would end up being us. So the verb itself, the meaning of the verb is have mercy on. And so here we have this preposition in English that's all included in that verb. So overall we have we live because he first has mercy on us. So there's some examples looking at a couple of contract verbs, some pronouns, and some forms of a me in the present tense, along with an interesting attributive noun and adjective setup.